to Cleveland Heights High School. Thank you for being here. I'm going to first ask everyone to power down or put their cell phones on vibrate, please. Thank you. My name is Mark Sack, a proud 1976 graduate of Heights High, and I currently have the honor of teaching the Lessons of the Holocaust course here. On behalf of myself, Juliana Johnson-Centura, the Executive Director of the Heights Schools Foundation, Amnon Ophir, the Director of Atakiva, and all of the community partners listed in the program, I'd like to welcome everyone to the 2018 presentation of Testimony Theater Cleveland. Again, thank you all for being here and supporting Holocaust commemoration and Holocaust education. A year ago, I saw Testimony Theater's premiere performance in Cleveland and recognized the potential educational value of this particular format of sharing the stories of Holocaust survivors. As some of you surely know, and as a national survey released last week on Holocaust Remembrance Day verified, as the years pass, memory of the Holocaust is fading. This fact, along with Holocaust denial, the rise in the number of anti-Semitic incidences, a general increase in hostility toward the other, and repeated targeting of civilian populations by evil regimes make Holocaust education efforts an increasingly important endeavor. For close to 45 years, significant Holocaust education activities have taken place in the classrooms here at Heights High and in this very auditorium. Since the 1970s, with the pioneering work of revered English teacher Dr. Leatrice Rabinski, thousands of Heights High students from diverse backgrounds have been exposed to both the factual horrors of the Holocaust and to its also important lessons, including, but not limited to, the real significance of choices we all make every day in how we perceive and how we treat others, and how through actions our universe of responsibility needs to extend beyond our own personal and immediate interest. The message here at Heights High has always been and continues to be what each of us does every day matters. Following Dr. Rabinski's trailblazing efforts in her Literature of the Holocaust class were my social studies predecessors, Saul Factor and Adrian Yelsky, who continued this important work here at Heights in their Lessons of the Holocaust course. Let's take a moment to acknowledge these three esteemed teachers for both their past successes here at Heights High and for their ongoing work in the field of Holocaust education in numerous forums in our community. Several of the many special experiences Heights students in these Holocaust-related courses had over the years include the Journey of Conscience trips to Poland and Israel, participation in international Holocaust survivor conferences, hearing Holocaust survivor and Nobel Peace Prize winner Elie Wiesel speak, visits to the Maltz Museum for powerful exhibits like Violins of Hope and the Eichmann Trial, and of course, those life-changing visits to Holocaust museums and museums of African American history in Washington, D.C., in Detroit, and most recently in Cincinnati. Also greatly contributing over the years to meaningful Holocaust education here at Heights have been Holocaust survivors and their children who have shared their experiences and truly opened up the hearts and minds of our students. Their names are listed in the program, and their family histories live on through our students and the countless others who have heard them speak. We are honored to have 5 of them here with us tonight. Erica Gold, a Heights High graduate herself, Gita Frankel and Nina Frankel, Roman Freeman, whose story was featured in last year's premiere presentation of Testimony Theater, and Robert Zelwyn, who shares with students the powerful story of his survivor parents, Sam and Ida Zelwyn of blessed memory. Let's take a moment to acknowledge these beloved guests and other Holocaust survivors who are here with us tonight who have shared their stories in many forums, and thank them for both their past contributions to Holocaust education here at Heights High and in the community, and for their continuing efforts to open up the hearts and minds of young people to the dangers of hate and indifference. Let's thank the survivors. I'd also like to especially welcome the students and staff from Archbishop McNicholas High School in Cincinnati and students and staff from Heights High's Minority Achievement Network. This past fall, when Heights High students traveled to the Underground Railroad Museum and Holocaust Museum in Cincinnati, the Heights students were hosted by Archbishop McNicholas High School. In addition to getting to know each other and breaking down some barriers, the students also completed a community service project together that involved making blankets for a homeless shelter in Cincinnati. Prior to coming to tonight's performance, the students and staff from these two schools spent time writing notes and preparing gifts of plants for residents of Honora Park, a local skilled nursing facility which many of you are aware of. These students, these young people, are seeing and experiencing the common humanity in all of us, and are actively working together to expand their universe of responsibility by finding ways to break down barriers and to help others. Let's take a moment to thank these students and their dedicated teachers. At this time, I'd like to introduce Sherry Gross. You know what, before I introduce Sherry, I want to say one more thing that I think is of importance. Again, the message has always been and continues to be what each of us does today and every day matters. So let's pass on that message to the young people here today and hope from our heart of hearts that they are successful in building a better, more empathetic, more caring world. Now I'm going to bring Sherry on. If she'd like to say a few words, she's the drama director of Testimony Theater Cleveland. She'll share a few important details about the process. Then we'll see the presentation, and then following the presentation, there'll be a brief Q&A with Sherry and some members of the cast. Again, I thank you all for being here, and I'm going to turn it over to Sherry at this time.
Good evening, everybody. I want to first and foremost thank you all for being here. It's wonderful to see a nice size audience. It shows how much we really care about Holocaust education. I also want to thank Mark and Cleveland Heights High for inviting us here. It's inspiring to be able to work with a school system that spends so much time making sure that their students understand how important it is to speak up against anti-Semitism so that something like the Holocaust can never happen again. I also want to thank Amnon Ophir for bringing this program to Cleveland and allowing me to be a part of it, so thank you to him. Just a brief word about the process. This is, as Mark mentioned, this is our second year with Testimony Theater, and we are fortunate to have two of the survivors who shared our stories, their stories with us last year right here. I see that we have Roman Freeman and Albert Pollack, so I want to acknowledge them and thank them for their support and for being here tonight. Tonight, you will see 5 stories of survival. We spent this year 14 teens interviewing Holocaust survivors and or their families to hear their stories, document them, and turn them into 5 vignettes that we will perform for you. I will tell you, first of all, that the teens that you're going to see on stage tonight have been incredible throughout this entire process. Many of them are not actors. Some of them have never been on a stage before. And they're from different backgrounds, different schools, they're different ages, but what they have in common is their passion for making sure that they get the word out to their generation and future generations that we don't want anti-Semitism to go on. They are dedicated to sharing the stories of their survivors, these stories that they've learned, and I know that it's very important to them that they honor their stories and their families so that we make sure that their stories are never forgotten. At the end of the performance tonight, we will acknowledge the 3 survivors from this year's production that are here with us this evening. That's Erica Gold, Nina Frankel, and Gita Frankel. So at this point, we are ready to begin. Some of the material that you're going to see is difficult, but that's important. So we hope that this means as much to you as it has to us throughout the process. Thank you.
My name is Erica Gold.
My name is Emil Schwimmer.
My name is Gita Frankel.
My name is Nina Frankel.
My name is Shaul Gorodinsky.
I was born in 1926.
The
Nazis invaded Poland.
The Nazis invaded Czechoslovakia.
The Nazis invaded.
I survived.
Unterjeder Wiegele steht a Korva Sigele. Das Sigele ist gefahren handeln. Das wird sein dein Beruf. Rogen Kess mit Mannen. Schlaf, Sheidele, schlaf, Sheidele, schlaf, Sheidele, schlaf.
Europe in the early 1930s.
Jewish children went to school, played outside, dreamed of a future.
Jewish fathers owned businesses, provided for their families.
Jewish mothers filled their homes with delicious smell of food and sang their children to bed.
Then suddenly, their lives were interrupted by the Nazis.
Rogen Kess mit Mannen. Schlaf, Sheidele.
Take advantage of education. It's in your head and it's yours.
Be involved.
Study individuals.
Speak up when something is not right.
These ideas became important to me as I fought to stay alive under the worst circumstances. My name is Erica Gold. I was born in 1932, 4 months before Hitler came to power. I survived. Children, what do you know about Kristallnacht?
It is the night of broken glass where Jewish businesses were vandalized and destroyed.
There were fires, Jewish books were burned, and there were attacks, and people were killed and hurt.
Isn't this year the 80th anniversary of the Kristallnacht?
Yes, it is the 80th anniversary of Kristallnacht. All these terrible things were going on, and the police and fire department stood around and did nothing. They were just there to make sure that the other buildings and businesses were not damaged.
Was there anti-Semitism before this when you were little?
There was some, but mostly we didn't feel it, and I went to a Jewish day school. Then, in 1939, Poland was invaded by Germany, and World War II started. Jews were killed, taken to concentration camps, or forced into ghettos. Has anyone heard of the final solution?
Isn't that when the Nazis decided they needed a faster way to get rid of Jews?
Exactly. They felt that doing it in small doses was not effective. This is when they started deportations to death camps. I recall the first time I knew something was really wrong.
Turn on the radio, quietly.
Are you sure we should? If anyone finds out we, as Jews, have a radio, we could be arrested.
Just keep it on quietly. It's the only way we know what's happening in the world.
As my parents listened, I could hear Hitler's voice yelling in German.
Der Völkerstreit oder Hass untereinander, wird geprägt von ganz bestimmten Interessenten. Es ist eine kleine, wurzellose internationale Clique, die Völker gegeneinander hetzt. Ich will, dass wir Ruhe kommen. Es sind das die Menschen, die überall und nirgends zu Hause sind, die nirgends einen Boden haben. Habt ihr sie gemacht?
We didn't have to be able to understand German to know something bad was happening.
In 1944, when it seemed that Germany could no longer win the war, Hungary tried to join the U.S. When Hitler found out, he occupied Hungary.
In less than 2 months, he did to Hungary what it took 2 years to do everywhere else.
Put it this way, Adolf Eichmann received a plaque congratulating him for sending 400,000 Hungarian Jews to camps in only 2 months.
Non-Jews can no longer work for Jews. Our beloved housekeeper had to leave us.
The Jews were all condensed into a few homes.
My apartment was off limits, so we moved into my aunt's. Each room had to be occupied by a family, including the bathroom.
The Jews were only allowed on the streets for 2 hours a day to buy important things like fruits and vegetables. They couldn't have meat, fish, flour, sugar, or dairy.
But because Erica was under 12, she could have 2 ounces of milk a week.
Jews were being taken to Auschwitz, where they were selected by Joseph Mengele to go to the right to work or to the left to be gassed and cremated.
2 men escaped and told the people and their governments what was happening, and no one believed them.
Erica was bored. She was a young girl with no school and no friends to talk to. But one day, she rebelled.
She took off her scarf, snuck out to the store, and bought herself an ice cream cone. She trembled at the thought that if anyone recognized that she was Jewish, she would be shot and killed on the spot.
She promised herself she would never do something like that again. Her parents never found out.
One day, Erica's mother was called down to a sporting arena. Here, she was being registered by the Nazis. It got so overwhelming that they sent all the Jews that weren't registered back home.
I'd heard of a factory that was like Schindler's. We could work to make uniforms, and we could be saved. I took Erica there. We worked all day. We never went outside, and at night we slept on the floor, on the uniforms.
I remember we got a message from my father saying that he was to be taken somewhere by the Nazis.
I didn't know where I was going, but at the time, the Swiss government had 2 diplomats in Budapest. They were giving protected papers to the Jews, to the Nazis. It was a risk.
I heard if you don't accept these papers, you would be killed. They would tie 3 Jews together and shoot them down the middle. To save bullets, they would fall in the Danube River.
It was a risk I had to take. I took the papers.
On December 1st, Nazis came into the factory and took 300 women and children, including Erica and her mother. They were put on a truck, and some were sent to a busy marketplace. They were told they were not allowed to get off truck or out of line.
This was the turning point in Erica's journey of survival. Her mother made a split-second decision that saved her life.
I don't know how I had the courage at that time to jump, but I knew I had to. I winked to Erica, and she jumped right off. We just walked away. We dropped our raincoats with our yellow stars on them and walked all the way to the home of our old housekeeper, Ilanka.
Ilanka, can we please stay here just a few days?
Yes, of course, but no one in my family can know that you are here. My sister comes over a lot, and you will need to hide.
We hid motionless under the bed in the dark for hours, which turned into days. 6 weeks felt like a very long time. But on January 15th, the Russians liberated us. A few days later, my father came and found us.
How did you get away?
The Nazis accepted my Swiss papers, and I survived.
We went back to see if our apartment was still there, and it was. All the windows are broken, except one in the bathroom, which is where we slept, with no heater water.
I slept in the tub.
When everyone started returning from the camps, that is when they learned of the horrors that were going on there.
We had a long journey to get back to the U.S. My father had hidden money in his shoe that the Nazis never found. We traveled to Cuba for 2 years, but eventually we came here.
Did you ever find out what happened to the other people with you when you escaped?
Yes, one of the person escaped. Everyone else was transported and killed.
What was it like to come to America?
We were scared, grateful. I went to Haitai. There were 3 Holocaust survivors at Haitai, but no one ever asked us anything about what we went through. People didn't want to ask, and actually, at the time, survivors didn't want to tell.
Did you stay in touch with your housekeeper who saved you?
We did. We maintained a relationship with Ilanka Takats until she died. She was a righteous Gentile, our hero. I graduated from Haitai in 1952, went to Case Western, and became a medical tech. I got married in 1956, had 2 children, and I have 4 grandchildren. I have gone back to Hungary several times, most recently with my granddaughter Jazzy. She will continue to tell my story, and I know that these children will continue to tell all of our stories. And remember,
take advantage of education. It's in your head and it's yours.
Be involved.
Study individuals.
Speak up when something is not right.
my name is Erica Gold. I was born in 1932, 4 months before Hitler came to power. I survived.
We went through so much more than young people today. You see, we weren't afraid of anything after the war.
The years leading up to 1936 in our little village of Usharud were filled with happy times for Emil Schwimmer's large family. His father had 5 brothers and each had a family. His mother had 5 sisters and each had a family.
On Purim, we would go home to home, giving Mishlach Manot with candies, cakes, and cookies.
The children would walk from house to house collecting and delivering all the baskets.
On such a walk, my brother and I gave in and ate 2 of the most tastiest cakes. Later, my aunt asked my mother,
How are the cakes?
she answered my aunt.
I did not see any such cakes.
Then she looked at us. I remember this for 75 years. There would be another walk in my future. It would be the Death March.
Cakes on Purim, duck on Rosh Hashanah. These would be the happy times, before the riots began. Emil's mother had a sister named Chava, who made Aliyah to Israel in the 1930s. Sensing the difficulties, Ilona wrote to Chava asking about the possibilities of immigrating to Israel.
At this time, the Czechs left the country and the Hungarians entered.
They beat the Jews and cursed them.
Smelly Jews.
While they had to carry bricks back and forth for miles, the most mundane jobs, we were ordered to do the most tiring exercise.
Dirty Jews.
In 1944, the Germans invaded Ush-Sarod. There was a tall mountain on one side and a river on the other. Across the bridge, there was a temple with a mikveh. The very religious Jews, with beards and taluses on their bodies, would cross this bridge to go to temple and to the mikveh.
On our house, we had a porch a few meters away from the bridge. We could see the Germans abuse and hit the Jews. While the Jews were abusing them, cutting their beards, and hitting them, the Jews did not give up. They continued crossing the bridge to the temple. This made some of us angry. Why did they continue to provoke them?
Things kept getting worse. The Jews were ordered to turn in their valuables and their jewelry. But they didn't want to turn in their stuff, so they hid them in the backyard.
I remember we were praying in temple with a man named Mr. Fried. Then a Polish man ran in yelling.
You don't know. They're burning Jews. They're burning Jews.
Mr. Fried yelled.
Get out of here. You're spreading scary rumors. It's not true. Don't scare the people. Get out of here, from the temple.
A few days before Pesach, the Ukraine walked into Emil's house, took all of their food, and his mother rings.
On Motzei Shabbat, Emil's mother received a reply letter from her sister Chava in Jerusalem.
Dear Elona, it is suicide to come with 4 children to Israel.
The day before Passover began, we were all in temple. Then we saw Mr. Fried pouring himself and his wife gasoline. Fried lit himself and his wife on fire. They jumped from the 2nd floor and killed themselves.
Later that morning, we were told to stand next to our house. All day and night, I saw carriages, horses, bedding from Jews. It was March, quite cold. Later, we were taken to the brick factory. From here, we would board a train going to Auschwitz.
Hungarians came and took us out of our houses. They put a paper strip across the door that said forbidden to enter or be shot. Then they told us to walk 2 to 3 kilometers. People tried to run away. Then I illegally entered a house and took stuff out.
He took food stamps and bread, and he saw that no one was around, so he also took stuff like potatoes and put them in his pocket. And then the police noticed, and he screamed at him to throw everything away, and then he hit him twice. And he was told not to take the food. He joined his family that was just sitting there. After 2 weeks living in a tent made out of blankets and branches, they were ordered to walk 2 kilometers to the train station.
We had all taken something. I gave my 5-year-old brother Aaron a bottle of goose fat to hold. After a few hundred meters, he threw it to the side and said it was hard. I yelled at him, "What will you cook with now?" Poor thing, he cried so much, it was heavy, and I yelled at him. This is a picture that lasts forever in my mind. I can never get it out of my mind. Aaron.
We were put on a train to Auschwitz. Inside, the train was full. There was nowhere to sit. People were put one on top of the other. It took hours to push us inside. People were going to the bathroom just where they were standing.
After the train stopped, that was the picture that I'll never forget. The gates and just after were projected with floodlights from all around us. When the cattle cars were open, I could see thousands of Jews, all wearing striped clothing. We come from a warm house. We don't understand what's going on here. Then the Germans screamed,
"Raus! Raus! Out! Out!" There was no way to get down from the train. Older people couldn't go down easily, and the floor of the cattle car was very high, and there were no stairs. So these people began throwing the elderly out of the car. After they left, their belongings stayed inside. They didn't even let us take our things.
Then I found myself in front of Joseph Mengele. He sent my brother, me, and my father to be shaven, given a number, and striped clothes. I never saw my mother or other siblings again.
What is your profession?
Tell them you were a machinist.
This saved my life. The machinists were taken to a factory where we'd work 12 hours a day making fabric for cannons. Then we dug trenches.
One day, Emil had a crisis. He fell asleep on the machine and the whole fabric was ruined. A Polish girl named Jeta saved his life. She paid off a guard and made the problem disappear.
Yetta wanted me to run away with her. I guess she loved me, but I could not leave my father and brother behind. One day, Yetta didn't show up to work. I never saw her again.
Then it happened. The Russians invaded, and the Germans made everyone stand in a line and walk 7 kilometers to a train, which took them to Mauthausen.
They showered in freezing water and stood naked in the snow with no shoes or clothes. They slept on a wood board for days.
When they finally got some clothes and soup, Emil's brother got sick and was taken to the infirmary. His father insisted on going with him.
I never saw my father and brother again. Later, I found out they were killed in the infirmary. This was a very dark period. Russians were shooting from the planes. People were moved from bunks to tents. There was no food. One time I saw prisoners, jaded prisoners, cooking something in pots with their fingers sticking out of it. Apparently, they had just cut up a person that had been blown up. These prisoners have been here since 1941. They were seeking more better ways to survive.
Next was the death march. We survived by eating leaves with snails and other foods that were thrown at us if we were lucky not to be shot.
In addition to the heartless Nazis, they battled cold and rain. So many people were being shot that the Nazis asked for volunteers to dig a hole for the bodies.
I was too tired to volunteer, even though the volunteers were promised bread.
The volunteers finished digging and asked for their bread. The Nazi soldiers took out their rifles and shot them into the hole they dug.
Finally, we were liberated, and the Germans ran away. Everybody began attacking the food supplies, but people were dying from eating too much. I was given a chocolate bar with some dates and figs. It filled me up and kept me from eating more.
Everyone was so happy about the thought of going home, no one realized there was no home to go to.
Emil's journey after liberation was not an easy one. He was alone until he found a cousin. He worked in a factory where he received a letter from his Uncle Chaim.
Come to Prague.
I did.
We aren't going to America. We're going to Israel, dressed as British soldiers.
On the train, there were survivors who thought we were British soldiers.
Emil's journey to Israel was interrupted as he was taken first to Belgium. From there, he went by boat to Israel. Everyone was sick, but it was the last boat that was not turned away.
He signed up for the army and was part of the Battle of Latrun with Ariel Sharon. He was wounded, with no way to reach his relatives.
But I survived and found my way back to my Uncle Chaim and his wife Esther.
Hi, my name is Jan Jacobson, and my mother had the honor of interviewing my great-uncle, Emil Schimmer, for 4 months in Tel Aviv. He went from being a teenager, delivering Mashloch Manot, to marching for his life. But somehow, he found the strength to survive. The atrocities he witnessed made him a Zionist, and he fought and once said,
People should never think that this country of Israel isn't ours, that we just got a gift from somebody. We didn't get any gift. People just took and subjugated it. No one deserves this land like we deserve it. My name is Emil Schwimmer.
and I survived.
Hi, Miss Frankel. I'm so glad to finally meeting you. I was expecting you.
Thank you for meeting me.
I know that you're here for a very important reason. I'm glad that I'm able to help you.
Yes, I'm here to have a stone made for my father's mass grave.
This is Gita Frankel. She has come to Poland with her son and a group of students from Heights High School. For these students, traveling to a concentration camp and learning about the Holocaust with Gita will be an unforgettable and powerful experience. Gita is still very nervous about being back in Poland with them.
We all feel very lucky to be here with Gita. We have heard about the Holocaust and learned about it, but some of us have never met someone who's actually been through it before.
Gita lost almost her entire family in the Holocaust. She watched her father get shot and thrown into a mass grave right in front of her eyes.
She wants to honor him by giving him a proper headstone, and we get to help her close that chapter of her life.
It is never really closed, but at least she'll know she did this for her father.
Gita was born Gita Engel in Kalisz, Poland. She played outside when she was young and went to synagogue on the holidays.
She went to a public grade school in a church, but does not have fond memories of that time.
There was a lot of anti-Semitism at that time. I was 7 years old, and the teachers were always reminding me that I was Jewish, not in a good way. So eventually, my parents decided to pull me out of school.
In 1939, Poland was occupied. Here, Jews were herded into the marketplace.
They thought they would be able to return home. That would not be the case.
Gita and her family escaped and found the ghetto of Dunskovola. They lived in a small attic with angled ceilings, 2 beds, and a table with 2 chairs.
Being in Poland reminded Gita of her best friend.
I've been trying to remember her, and now that I'm here and I see this balcony, I remember. She was smart, kind, beautiful, and had blonde ponytails.
Gita and her friend used to sit in the window and laugh and read funny books until they cried at the thought of losing these happy times.
She wanted me to sleep over, but I was afraid that the roundup would happen while I was there, and I wouldn't be with my parents.
Gita, what happened to your friend?
She was sent to Chelmno, and she didn't survive.
Gita, how would you describe your childhood?
I was never really a child. I had so much curiosity for life, but there was death every day. I was never a child.
The day came in the Dunskovola ghetto that the Jews were being rounded up and taken to a Jewish cemetery.
Gita's family of 5 all held hands as they marched through the gate.
Being at this spot was very emotional for Gita.
This was the very spot where my brother was sent to the side to be sent to a death camp. I watched as my father left us and tried to save my brother. My father was shot 4 feet away from us, right in front of our eyes, and thrown into a mass grave.
Putting a stone here for her father gave Gita some closure.
From that cemetery, Gita, her mother, and her older brother were sent to the Lodz ghetto.
My brother was a great brother and a very good son. He always looked out for us and tried to protect us until he died of starvation in my arms.
Gita takes us to her brother's grave, which she finds fairly easily. A friend helped her find it on her last trip to Poland, and she remembered where it was.
Gita, what happened after your brother died in the ghetto?
After the ghettos, my mother and I were promised a better place with more food and opportunities to work. They were put in cattle cars, and after traveling for days, the doors opened to shouting and the smell of human flesh. They saw fires and could not comprehend what they were seeing.
Gita, when you see the scene, do you see it as black and white or in color?
I see it in black and white. It was like I was colorblind. I could not see colors or a future.
Gita and her mom were part of 1,000 people taken right away to a crematorium. The first 500 were gassed and were marched into the gas chambers and killed right away.
I was standing with my mother crying because we knew that this was our last moment alive. We were among the next 500 to be sent to the gas chambers. But then we heard news. There was not enough room for us in the gas chambers. We were to go through another selection.
This is where Gita found herself in front of Joseph Mengele, who is known for his inhumane experimentations on the prisoners.
First, they were made to undress completely. Gita decided that she would go no matter which way her mother went.
I began to make faces at Mengele, like flirting to show that I liked him. I wanted to distract him from my mother. He looked at me, put his hand on me, and made me turn around for him. While this was going on, my mother was able to sneak to the right side, the side of life. Mengele sent me in the same direction.
As we walk through Auschwitz with Gita, we see the sign that says Arbeit macht frei, labor makes us free. Gita also has a chance to try and find the home where she grew up, but it is no longer there.
Gita, are you happy you took this trip?
I'm not happy that I came, but I'm glad that I came. I wanted to do this for my father, and I'm so lucky to be here with these students and with my son. I'm very grateful that these students want to learn, and now they have to teach. Time runs, and I'm running with it. Soon, there will be no one left to talk. We live to tell. My name is Gita Frankel, and I survived.
Evil succeeds when good people do nothing.
Poland, 1941. On the first day of the Nazi occupation, 3,000 Jews were killed in a series of pogroms.
We were forced to wear armbands. 12 Jewish elders were to carry out the Nazi orders.
We couldn't go to school, the theater, our businesses were closed, and all our money was taken away from us.
The Nazis threw us out of our homes. Many were beaten and killed.
There were sporadic killing sessions. Then it was quiet. Then more killing. We were scared every day.
June 1942. Empty cattle cars rode in. People were rushed out and never heard from again.
My name is Nina Frankel. My parents paid someone to build a bunker in our home. But one day, I was grabbed and taken to fix the road in the cemetery. Then I was transferred to a camp to work in a quarry.
Nina had to break stones with a hammer. Her hands were burnt and blistered. The pain caused her to work slowly, and she was beaten until she passed out from the pain and hunger.
She was given a new job that involved carrying heavy items. She was hit with rifles and tore her skin on rusty nails, but she could not complain of her injuries, or she would be shot and killed.
She had no warm clothes. She was always cold and often beaten for not working properly. Then she was sent back home to work. On January 1st, it was announced that a ghetto would form. It was easier to control us this way.
The conditions were unsanitary. There were bodies laying in the street. There was cold, sickness, typhus, and starvation. And who could forget the sight of children crying over their parents' bodies?
Nina's parents had a connection to a Christian woman named Stefa. She got her false papers and sent her to a woman named Mary.
My new name was Christina, and I made dresses. One day, I was sent with some money on an errand. Someone recognized me, and I was taken to the police. When the person who recognized me left, I pretended I didn't speak German, only Polish. Somehow they believed me that I wasn't Jewish, and I was released.
Nina used the money she had for supplies to travel into her car Jardin so she wasn't followed.
When I got back and told Mary what happened, she decided it wasn't safe for me to stay. Mary's cousin hid me in sacks in the back of his truck and snuck me back into the ghetto.
On April 5th, 1943, the ghetto was liquidated. Nina and her father hid in a bunker while her mother and other family members hid in another.
My father and I were found and taken to the marketplace. It was chaos.
The SS soldier, making everyone undressed, took all their jewelry and the money and put them in a box.
I was confused and scared, and I remember our non-Jewish neighbors pointing and laughing at our naked bodies. I was herded to a pit of bodies, and I started to hear the burst of guns.
Everyone was being shot and falling into the pit. Nina jumped into the pit of bodies and pretended she was dead. She laid still among the bodies and the smell and kept hearing gunshots until she passed out.
Nina couldn't tell if it was day or night. She couldn't tell if the top of the pit was covered with dirt. She thought she might be buried alive.
She had trouble freeing herself as she was tangled in the limbs of dead bodies, but she finally did climb out. She found some clothes on the ground and ran to her mother's bunker.
Nina fell into her mother's arms and told her that her father was dead.
After one day, we were found and taken back to the marketplace. The butcher of the ghetto asked for volunteers to clean up the clothes of those that were killed. My mother and I went.
They escaped to a new ghetto. There was no barbed wire, so escape was possible. But Jews had to watch each other. If one escaped, then they would be killed.
We were taken to a new camp. We were forced to undress. We couldn't believe what we saw. People were crying and praying. Women were walking to their deaths. And there was music with an accordion and a harmonica to make it sound pleasant. My mother and I were in shock.
I'm so sorry, Nina. I'm sorry.
Move, now. Stand up. I can take you to another camp.
Excuse me, can my mother come with me?
The guard motioned to Nina's mother. He gave her a coat, and they moved them to a new camp.
There was killing all around us. I had never seen this Nazi before, and I never saw him again. I never even knew his name.
One night, Nina's mother decided it was time to run. They ran through the barracks.
I wrapped a coat around my hand and broke a window to the attached barrack. We climbed to the top shelf and hid under the sheepskins.
My mom hit her head on the board and realized the board was not nailed in. We climbed into the attic and hid there.
One night, when it was quiet, they heard Nazis looking for them. Then they thought how they would ever escape.
My mother remembered that she had felt a key in the coat that the Nazi had given her. We used this key to loosen a board and we escaped. We didn't know which way to get to town, so we went to the right and ran.
We were so weak, but we fought to live. We hid during the day and ran at night.
One night, we were running through the fields when we heard voices and a wagon. We laid flat in the field so no one would find us.
Nina fell asleep. When she woke up, she called out to her mother, but no one answered. Nina realized her mother was gone. She looked everywhere, but couldn't find her.
I began to panic at the thought of being alone, and the idea that I had lost my mother was unbearable. I could not stop thinking about what had happened to her. I ran in the darkness until I found a bakery and hid in a shack behind some firewood. But I knew I was lost and not near home. I was terrified.
Who are you?
Please.
You are a Jewish child. You cannot stay here.
Please just tell me where I am.
It turned out she was on the outskirts of her town.
Here is a biscuit and some water. You can stay until nightfall, but then you have to leave.
She found a Christian woman, Stefa, who helped her get her papers. She hid there for 6 weeks until Stefa decided that she needed to leave. The Nazis were killing Christians who were hiding Jews.
I remember that my mother had arranged a hiding place with a couple named Jan and Zhenya. I found my aunt hid there under the pig and cow stall. We could only stand or sit. We hid this way for 11 months.
When Jan and Jenny went to church, the priest told them it was wrong to hide Jews. When they came home, they told Nina and her aunt it was wrong to hide them.
But Nina got the courage to talk them into letting them stay.
By 1944, we were free. I was mentally and physically ill. I was in the hospital for a while. Nina waited in her hometown. She was overcome with grief at the thought of what could have happened to her mother. Then she ran into a non-Jewish man that she knew named Sigmund.
I told Nina that I saw her mom on a wagon with the Ukraine SS police. They killed her.
My mother must have approached the wagon while I was asleep to ask for help. I cannot believe she took that chance. She would have survived with me.
Nina went into a deep depression at the thought of being orphaned and alone. She wondered why miracles happen to one person and not another. Does one deserve it more?
These are questions that still plague Nina today.
In 1945, I met a Polish Jewish survivor. We were married in Krakow and went to America. We wanted to go to Palestine, but it was under British occupation. We would have had to take a boat to Cyprus to a DP camp, but we said we were not going behind barbed wire again. We went to America in late fall of 1949. I went back to visit Jan and Zhenya in 1997, and I am still in contact with their daughter. Evil succeeds when good people do nothing.
Do something.
ריבונו של עולם, אם נדבר גלויות, לפעמים אין לי כוח בעולמך להיות. אנא מפניך אסתתר, מה אטען, מה אצטדק, מה אדבר. חנון ורחום אין לפניך גלוי, כאן יהודי שהלכו התעצם כתולעת, השמחה נסתלקה ממני וגם הדעת. קולות מהעבר לא חשים לי לעצור, אבל אני מוסיף בחושך לחתור ושואל ומבקש
לא נלך כצאן לטבח.
We will not walk like sheep to the slaughter.
We are all survivors of the Novogrodic labor camp, thanks for a few people who decided to fight.
My name is Shaul Gorodinsky, and I was born in 1926 in Poland. I lived with my parents and my 4 siblings, and together we led a happy, normal life until we were sent to Ghetto Novogrodic.
Shaul was 14 years old and made to carry heavy loads. It was a very hard life with little food and 5 families living in one apartment.
Conditions were dirty, it was very unsanitary, and there was constant bombing.
There were so many deaths. We could not go on that way. So Shaul and a few others had the idea to form a resistance.
We had to think of a way we could resist. Face-to-face fighting would not be an option.
We decided we're going to dig a tunnel under the camp and until the forest, but not everyone agreed with the idea.
You are crazy. We will never get away with it.
Why should we go through a tunnel? If we can live until tomorrow, then why should we die today?
It is better to try. If we die after fighting the enemy, and maybe some of us will survive.
We planned very carefully. The entrance to the tunnel will be under one of the beds in the barracks.
We began digging with whatever we found. Rocks, pieces of metal. We did this all night instead of sleeping.
And there was a problem. When you dig, you are removing sand and mud. And what are you supposed to do with that without it being noticed?
I'll tell you. We hid it in the roof. We built a wall and hid it behind the wall. And how did we get it there?
The tailors sewed bags for us to put the sand in.
The woodworkers made a wooden stroller-like vehicle to push into the tunnel, load the sand, and pull it back out.
The bravery and teamwork kept us going. The tunnel would be 70 centimeters wide, 250 meters long, 1 meter deep, and air holes every 20 meters.
We also figured out that the grass behind the hill had to be cut, not cut, so we could escape. So the escape had to be before the harvest.
We also calculated that it had to be the beginning of Jewish month, so the moon would be skinny. We needed it to be dark.
The day of the escape, those of us who were electricians cut the wires of the camp to make it dark and distract the Nazis. They thought it was a power outage. They underestimated us.
We also had to take care of the logistics, like who goes in first and who goes last. There were dangers either way.
We decided that the weak people will go in front and the stronger ones in the back. Between the stronger ones, we made a lottery. I was number 77, my sister was number 78, and her future husband was number 79.
We made a rule. Nobody could wait for anybody. Once we got out of the tunnel, we had to run away to the forest.
I could not wait for my sister, although she was behind me. The instructions were to run right away. It could risk us all getting caught.
The day came after a lot of difficulty. There had been some bombings at one point, and we had to rebuild.
250 people tried to escape. About 200 actually got out. Some died in the tunnel. It was very hard to breathe, and some of the people who were the last ones were caught.
And out of the 200 that escaped, it was hard to tell how many actually survived.
Shaul ran into the forest and found partisans who fought the Nazis. The Bilski brothers were the leaders. Shaul joined them. They became the subject of a movie called Defiance.
There were close to 1,000 of them. Many who escaped found them, including Shaul's sister.
In 1944, we went to Italy. I decided to go to Israel, and my sister and her future husband decided to go to the US.
Out of Shaul's family of 7, only he and his sister survived.
My father and my mother met each other in the army. They got married and they had 3 children and 12 grandchildren. My father was an officer for 30 years in the Israeli army. Unfortunately, he didn't get a chance to see all of us, so in 1981 he passed away.
About 7 years ago, all the survivors and the families from the city went back to Novogrudek to dig the tunnel again. This was all put in a documentary movie called Tunnel of Hope. There is also a 3D model of this tunnel, and it's located in the Lochmei Getaot Museum and in the War Museum in London.
We will not walk like sheep to the slaughter. לא נלך כצאן לטבח.
My name is Shaul Gorodinsky.
We survived.
ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושלום, הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור, כינור.
My name is Erica Gold.
My name is Emil Shomer.
My name is Gita Franco. My name is Gita Franco.
My name is Shaul Gorodinsky.
I was born in
1926.
The Nazis invaded Poland.
The Nazis invaded Czechoslovakia.
The Nazis invaded.
We survived.
Please join us once more in the chorus of
ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושלום, הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושלום, הלא לכל שירייך אני
Erica Gold, Gita Frankel, and Janina Frankel. If you We're happy to answer any questions that you might have for our students about the process. Is there anybody who has a question? Yes.
You're five survivors last year. And doing the one this year, how would you feel if you had blamed you with these? There's 41% of the people in this country have not heard of the Holocaust, genocide, and all that surprise. Furthermore, how would you feel if someone said to you, the Holocaust never happened?
In case you didn't hear the beginning of the question, his question was, after hearing these stories of the 5 survivors, the plain dealer had a statistic that said 41% of people don't know anything about the Holocaust, haven't heard about the Holocaust. How does that make you feel?
I'll answer. Well, it's really surprising because, I mean, there are so many survivors who tell their stories, and when people say, oh, the Holocaust never happened, well, then why are these people telling their stories? No one makes up things that tragic and that traumatic.
If someone came to me and said they think that the Holocaust never happened, I would say, then what did? Then why is it that a entire religion was wiped out? How is that possible without something like a Holocaust?
I think the magnitude of the Holocaust that had occurred over several countries throughout Europe had such a large impact is somewhat hard to believe and hard to fully comprehend its magnitude. And I can only say from personal experience that I have encountered Holocaust denial and anti-Semitism throughout high school, and it's been a prevalent part of, I guess, what's been part of my identity, I would say now. And only I can say from personal experiences. What we do have is unity, of course, Israel and other things in Jerusalem, and there's a whole thing for that. But the fact that that's even a safe haven for Jewish people today just stands against all the anti-Semitism, anti-Israel propagation across the world, that we as Jews have a future, and of course, like, look at us, so, yeah.
What was the most touching aspect of your performance?
I'd probably say that it was when all of us were saying that together we survived, and going through and saying the years that we were born, and saying the names of the Holocaust survivors, because I feel like it makes it more important knowing that everybody went through it in some way, and just knowing that multiple people survived, it makes it.
I think that a big part of it, a very emotional part of it, is being part of a cast that's made up of relatives of these survivors, because each and every one of us had something to connect it to. It's not people we found online that were retelling their stories, it's people that we have talked to and people that we have touched and hugged and know like what they went through. So being able to portray that is a very emotional experience.
Then having some of our survivors sitting in the audience in front of us while we're putting on this play is very impactful too.
Another touching part is that when we all join together and sing Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, to show that we are unity, that we have come together as one, and that we're telling these stories to the Holocaust survivors, so that this never happens again.
Anyone else have any questions or comments for the young cast or for Sherry? Where?
I don't know if you got.
You want to bring the mic over. When you're a high school teacher, you have a voice. You won't need the microphone.
My question, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
I said, I don't know if y'all said it already, but I just want to know, how long did it take you guys to like put this all together?
4 months. Since September.
Ooh.
Every week.
We started with a little bit of Holocaust education. We did some team building exercises we talked a little bit about the interview process. We came up with questions that we wanted to ask. That was the whole first part of the year. The second half of the year was when we started working on the individual scripts. We met about once a week. As we got closer, we met twice a week. So it was a few months that we actually worked on the production itself.
Yeah, I recently had lunch with a family relative I hadn't seen in 30 years. And the reason I did this is that his mother was a Holocaust survivor, and she died about 20 years. But I wanted to hear her story through him. And what I learned is he didn't know very much. He said, well, she never really talked about it, and I never really asked. And I felt like this great family story was lost. But you guys had the chance to hear these stories firsthand, and I'd like to hear about the power of that experience and how that affected you.
Well, first of all, having grandparents that were in the Holocaust, it was very hard to hear more stories that kind of went along with what my grandpa went through. And hearing these stories like really made me think about how much more he went through and how much it sticks with my family, with myself. So,
personally, growing up also with two grandfathers that survived the Holocaust, I've always had a connection with this topic, and have always wanted to hear more. So the more and more that I learned from people like that I've seen that talk to me about it, it's just that much more impactful, and it'll never not be emotional for me.
For me, I also have a grandfather that survived the Holocaust. And it just makes me think, what happens if they didn't? No one, at least a bunch of us, wouldn't be here. And it just makes you think, what would have happened? I mean, how would we be different? And it'd be a completely different, we'd all be completely different people. And that's one of the impacts that it's on me, as well as many others.
I just think, you learn about the Holocaust in school, and you learn the facts and statistics and all of that, but when you hear the stories coming directly from the survivors or from relatives of the survivors, it's very impactful, and it just makes you realize how important it is to share these stories so that everyone can hear that it's not just facts and statistics, it's real life stories.
Going along with what Brian said, I would never pretend to be something I'm not. Like, if someone said Jewish people are a type of way, and I saw people were hiding and being like, yeah, I'm not Jewish, I would never hide myself from that, because it makes me who I am, and I would never want to hide anything like that from anyone.
I just want to say it's a difficult thing to do, especially now on college campuses in the U.S., across the country. I forget what gentleman spoke about the statistics earlier this evening, and even the opening speech in his remarks, as he already addressed. The importance of what we're doing serves for these reasons. As it is getting really difficult, and especially as anti-Semitism is creeping up, especially across the country for youth, and it's what even students at some point in their lives may prepare for when they go to colleges or universities, and it's a whole realm of that, another level. So it's definitely, it makes it ever more important to do this, and especially convey the message.
I had a very special opportunity also to share my grandfather's story, and this really helped me find out lots of new information about his resistance story. And also here in Cleveland, researching here, I found a family that is also from the same town, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity.
So I know at Akiva that you all have choices for the projects that you pick, and I want to commend all of you for choosing to do this. So you chose to do something that you know would be hard. You choose to further educate yourself about the Holocaust. You chose something that would educate other people about the Holocaust. And in the statistics that Roman just cited, about 41% of people not knowing what Auschwitz was or knowing about the Holocaust. The highest percentage of those people were millennials, were young people just a little bit older than yourselves. So I just want to congratulate you and commend all of you for doing a really wonderful job.
Something I want to add, one of the most impactful parts of this process for me was watching them receive the stories from the survivors. I grew up in the 70s and the 80s in Rochester, New York, and I don't know what the community here was like, but in Rochester, we had a very large percentage of survivors. And we started learning about the Holocaust, which had only happened 30 or 40 years earlier, when I was in like first grade. This was something that we started studying as children. And every year we went to the Yom HaShoah ceremony, and there were survivors in uniforms. And we read poems, and we sang songs, and we heard stories. And it's not like that now. Now parents are protective in a different way, I feel like, over their children. So children who are younger don't really learn about the Holocaust, and then we miss gaps of age groups. And as we quoted in Gita's story, she said something very poignant to us. She said, "Time is running, and we're running with it." And as time is moving on and our survivors are getting older, it's more important now than ever to find out these stories. And that, for me, watching these guys care so much and listen to these stories and take notes and add to the performance, that was the most important part for me personally.
I just wanted to say that when I was asked to teach the lessons of the Holocaust class many years ago, it was not something that I wanted to do because I am also a child of Holocaust survivors. And yet I did it for many years, and it was one of the most awful things about retirement, was leaving that behind. And I'm about to cry. But this man took it on. And this school system, where Dr. Dixon sits through these things, where Mr. Reed, who retired from here and was a principal, comes back for something like this. This is what this community is about, so it will never be forgotten here. And I am so appreciative for all of you showing support for our programs here. And for these wonderful kids, you're wonderful.
Do you believe that the stories of the righteous Gentiles should be told as well?
Yeah, so when I went to Israel last year on my 8th grade Israel trip, we went to Yad Vashem, which is the Holocaust Museum in Israel, and they had a whole thing for righteous Gentiles to help the Jews, and they remembered their names because they were like the ones who made all this happen, and they helped people survive.
Yeah, I think it's equally as important to remember and share stories about the righteous Gentiles because, you know, these survivors are so thankful for them, and we're all so thankful for them. So I think they definitely deserve to be talked about as well.
If anything, they probably have one of the most important parts of each story, because without the righteous Gentiles there, I mean, there wouldn't be a story to tell. I don't understand that I'm thinking about it, why we don't why we don't hear the stories.
Good evening. I graduated from Heights in 1984, and I was a member of Dr. Leotrice Rubinsky's Holocaust Literature program, and I found that most transformative in my life. It gave me an opportunity to understand and to delve into something that's not comfortable. As an adult, I lead Girl Scouts today, and recently I took my girls to the Holocaust Museum in Detroit, and they clearly found this a transformative experience for themselves. We'd expected to be there for an hour or so, and 4.5 hours later, they were still at the exhibit, internalizing that, and it has been a powerful thing for them. But what I found most grateful about this performance is it means a lot more when you hear it from a source. And you guys are retelling that source. And so my hope for them, 2 of them who are here with me today, is that this story that you told about 5 people is truly transformative in their lives. And I thank you for being here today.
The choices you make in life are very important, and we are all sitting here today because of one person that made a choice in her life. She was a teacher here, Leotrice Rubinsky. And because of her legacy, we are here today. You are learning about the Holocaust. Many of the second generations that grew up in Heights High never knew about the Holocaust until Dr. Rubinsky decided to bring it to the curriculum. But I just want to remind you that out of her choice to teach the Holocaust, here in Northeast Ohio, we have a program called Face to Face and many other programs, and we have kids that come from Garrettsville, Ohio, that has not seen any Jewish families to the program, kids from Canton, kids from the West Side, learning about the Holocaust, learning about the humanity. So I'm putting a challenge to all of you, and I really appreciate the time that you took for that performance, and you are great. I think you deserve another round of applause, please. And with those educators that are doing those things, you have choices in life. You're going to go to college, you'll hear stories about denial of the Holocaust, you learned about it. But teach it to other kids that are not involved and never knew about the Holocaust, because, as you know, Holocaust survivors are not going to be around too long, for many, many years. Second generations are taking the role of their parents, and second generation grew up without grandparents also. But you had grandparents, you heard stories. Please be witnesses and make the right choice for humanity. Thank you.
My name is Saul Factor. After Leotrice, I was privileged to take over the program. We changed it from the literature of the Holocaust to the lessons of the Holocaust for a very simple reason. Without it, the students couldn't have gotten history credit. But that was the reason. However, I do have one request. It is true, unfortunately, the number of young people, especially, who know nothing about the Holocaust. And part of the problem, unfortunately, rests with the State Department of Education, which is too busy with testing and not putting in as a required part of the curriculum Holocaust education. So I think there needs to be some writing to the State Board to put the pressure on.
As I was sitting here listening to this, I realized that the last 3 years of the Holocaust, I was in this gym playing basketball on this day. And I had a very dear friend by the name of Miles Lerman, who was the head of the U.S. Holocaust Museum. And when we would talk about what those years were like, he was a partisan fighting in the woods of Poland, and I was in Cleveland Heights High School playing basketball on the hardwoods in Cleveland Heights. And the miracle that happened out of the ashes was the survivors that came to this country and what they have done for us and what they have done for this country. And my last thought is for those of us who worry about will it be remembered, there is your answer. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Any last questions or comments? Again, Righteous Gentiles, this morning I received an email from a member of our community reminded me of a story I know, but I want to recommend this story to everyone in this room if you don't know it. The story of Master Sergeant Roddy Edmonds. Master Sergeant Roddy Edmonds, an American hero. Find his story. Somewhere on YouTube it's there. Master Sergeant Roddy Edmonds. It's a great American story, okay? Trust me, you won't regret it. Young people on stage, young people in the audience, what you do matters. What you've done today matters. Take that message to heart and build a more caring, a more empathetic world for you, your children, and your children's children. Thank everyone for coming tonight. Hope you enjoyed it and got a lot out of it. Have a good evening.
חנון ורחום אין לפניך גלוי כאן יהודי שהלכות השערה ותלוי נלחם בעצבות בייאוש המכרסם כתולעת השמחה נסתלקה ממני וגם הדעת קולות מהעבר לא חשים